The Mannin Line with Andy Wint.
Good afternoon. Welcome to Mannin Line on Extra Radio. Well, it was all go this morning at the airport. Perhaps you were there. Lots of cancellations, toing and froing and more. If you're at the airport, let us know what happened. Cabinet Office Minister says he is fit to hold the position of Cabinet Office Minister despite resigning from Comin earlier in the current administration. You've heard that story in the news. Text, email, call and WhatsApp, whatever's on your mind. We're open line till 1 today. And Robert's first with us today. Hi, Robert.
Hi, how you doing, Andy? There seems to be a cold wind afoot on the way in the next couple of days. Have you seen the weather?
Well, who'd have thought that? December in the Northern Hemisphere.
Well, it happens, doesn't it? But I think, the black clouds are coming. I think people just need to be wary of it because, SAD and all the rest of it can have an effect.
That's true. Get as much sunshine as you can.
Bit more vitamin D, I think, if you get capsules of that or something, but don't OD on it, But I mean, just a little bit more supplement would help. Anyway, I'm phoning about the MyCard.
What, disappearing next year?
It is. Now's the time. I'm literally over, the soup kitchen over at Broadway at the moment. Don't all pile in, but I mean, I literally got people at the moment saying that I've never had a bank account. I've never, the money's always come through my card. I've always got cash out of the till, like whoever would do that. And now's the time. There's a man called Andy who can help you out and get yourself a bank account and get yourself set up. I'm not saying we all need to go down and get companies and spend all our money and all the rest of it, but now's the time to make the shift.
All right. So where can people get advice on getting a bank account?
Well, just come to Gryer, and there's a man called Andy who can help you out. Don't swamp him. But, I mean, if you just come here dribs and drabs and say, look, I've no bank account, there's someone here that can help. He'll take you down to Lloyd's or whatever it is, or whatever bank account you want, maybe Santander or someone, and get yourself sorted. I think it's Lloyd's that give you a bank account if you haven't got all your details and all your particulars in terms of, like, your birth certificate and all the rest of it. They'll help you get all of that stuff sorted. So now's the time to, kind of sew onto the cogs.
Yeah. So this is Andy at Gray on Broadway, yeah?
Yeah, he does help people. Like, don't swamp him because, he can only help so much. But, I mean, he's the guy who can really help out. So now's the time. People listen who are out there in, Pulrose and Annika and just say, well, what am I supposed to do? Because I haven't got anything to go on now, and they're going to make the switch. Now's the time to come down and actually open up that conversation and just have that small eke into the right direction and get yourself on a bank account.
Okay, we appreciate that, Robert. Thanks for calling today.
All right, no worries. Bye now.
Good to hear from you. 12:10 on Manx Radio. This is the story about the MyCards. They're scrapping the MyCards, are the government. Treasury Minister was asked in House of Keys what assessment's been made of the impact of removing the service. You heard Robert say lots of people who've got MyCards haven't got a bank account. So there's one solution there. Don't swamp him. Don't swamp Andy at the Gry on Broadway. But he'd no doubt be pleased to. They'll probably keep you waiting with a cup of tea. What did the Treasury Minister say about this? Well, he was asked in Keys what assessment's been made of removing the MyCards. Now, they wrap up on the 31st of December 2025 and are used by some to collect benefit or pension payments from the post office. Now, Dr. Allenson said it's only a few people that are going to be affected.
We look at the total number of people who get benefits and we look at the total number who are receiving them via MyCard. It is a very, very small fraction of that. And what we're doing is not removing that access to cash, but doing that access to cash in a different way, so that in fact I would hope that people will be even more encouraged to spend that in the local communities.
Well, there he was, Dr. Allinson, talking about the MyCard system going. It's been around for a while. Oh, thanks to Anne, who just said, regarding the airport this morning, what a shambles. At 7 a.m, Alabama to Liverpool, aborted takeoff. Logan aircraft knackered. I think they say gone tech. And waited on the aircraft, taken off the aircraft, back in the lounge, back to holding, air traffic control closed, air traffic control still closed, sat on the aircraft, still waiting to depart. Some people have missed important hospital appointments, dialysis, people have missed connecting flights. So we need to get a grip where this is concerned. So if it was a tech aircraft, if it was an aircraft that was technically not working, then it was the 7 o'clock LM681 to Liverpool. Maybe you know somebody who was on that. There were some more delays as well later on. The 9:45, I think, departure to Manchester is not going until 10 to 2. The 12:25 Logan Air to Birmingham is not going until 2:30. This afternoon, and the 11:55 Logan Air inbound from Manchester is not in until 10 to 4 this afternoon. So delays. Oh, that 9:15 inbound Logan Air from Liverpool not in until midday 45. So is it something we accept? I suppose you can all look back and think things were a lot better in the past. We all got that habit of looking back with rose-tinted glasses. But when we used to have more airlines, when we used to have more departures, there didn't seem to be that much of a problem. Probably that was because there were many more flights going in and out of Ronaldsway Airport. But is that something we're just going to have to accept, basically? I mean, we are at the behest of Logan Air and EasyJet. And bearing in mind that EasyJet, a couple of days ago, said that they may be restricting some provincial flights. Well, provincial to them means not in London, but particularly possibly to Belfast. Well, we're on the way to Belfast. So fingers crossed for EasyJet. That was something to do with an extra passenger tax that may have been happening in the UK. It's Monday, and you know what Monday means in our 60th anniversary year? It means we're back into the archive. And you simply have to listen to this one today. After Mannin Line today, Albert Gubay is on Manx Radio. Going back to the 1990s to hear an interview with businessman Albert Gubay talking to David Callister about the concept behind the brand new Mount Murray Hotel and Golf Club. Albert Gubay talks about Mount Murray after Mannin Line today. Always did paper tax returns in June, getting refunds in September. I did it online this year, says Gaz. I'm still waiting. The spending IT is obviously wasted if the process is going to be manual. Does anybody else have information about the tax assessments being late? And if you want a bank account, go to a bank. Lloyds and HSBC have real people who are very helpful. They'll advise you what you need to do, says Sue. Why do we need 5 new buses? Well, we have apparently got 5 new buses. New drivers is what we need, says 942. It's probably easier to buy buses, isn't it, than get drivers. You know my point. And again, Sharon, with this note about why tax assessments are so late this year. We don't quite know why they're so late, but we'll try and find out. You can text, email and call and WhatsApp, and I've got lots of messages to get to, particularly concerning, we were talking last week about health and welfare and what you do. And do you remember we were talking about somebody saying that rich people should be buying things on the Isle of Man or doing things on the Isle of Man, as in Henry Bloom Noble did amazing things for the Isle of Man. So why is if Henry Bloom Noble did so many things for the Isle of Man, why is Douglas Corporation Council going to change the library sign from Henry Bloom Noble to Douglas City Library? Well, presumably because they want to big up Douglas City Library. The library wasn't always Henry Bloom Noble. It's not been Henry Bloom Noble for that long, but we see the point. The previous administrations obviously thought enough of it to name it Henry Bloom Noble Library. And this one are calling it Douglas City Library. Thanks also to our people talking about our disposable income and what we're going to do in the future. I suppose there's this kind of existential thing about the Isle of Man and the fact that times aren't as good as they used to be. And yet last week we had a report about 80 odd million quid's worth of tax that we didn't know we were going to get, and we're well over where that's concerned. But it is relative, isn't it? I mean, people have been poorer than us in the past and poorer than us on the Isle of Man. So do we just need to smile and take it, or do you think there's any sort of existential threat to it? I got a note in from Tommy who just said, we certainly need to watch out for the Labour Party in Britain. It's the Labour government now, isn't it? Tommy was saying, Andy, I've seen some of the tricks that the Labour Party in Britain are pulling. Let's hope they don't have their eyes set on us. Do you remember when Tony Blair got in? They were very concerned about what they always call the tax hideaways. They always get very excited about that. Tony Blair came in. I think they had a 2-year inquiry. Absolutely nothing. They were very miffed about that. Cabinet Office Minister says he is fit to hold the position despite resigning from Comyn earlier this administration. David Ashford MHK stood down from his role as Treasury Minister in May a couple of years ago after a tribunal found the island's former medical director was unfairly dismissed during the Douglas North MHK's time as Health Minister. Mr Ashford rejoined Comyn last week as part of a reshuffle by Alfred Cannon, Chief Minister. Mr Ashford says he was cleared of wrongdoing in the Ranson Tribunal, but felt resigning was the right thing to do.
I most certainly do. It's time maybe to kill a few public myths. I was not involved in the Ranson Tribunal in that way. I was called to the Ranson Tribunal as a witness. There was no allegation in relation to my personal conduct. And in fact, the Richard Wright report that actually looked into the handling of the Ranson affair also looked into what my actions as minister. And the Richard Wright report was very, very clear in the fact that I acted appropriately as minister at all times in relation to the Dr. Ranson affair.
But do you understand why the other side, perhaps? I know you mentioned that some people have welcomed you back with open arms. Do you understand why the public might question this, given there is a perception amongst the public that accountability appears to lack?
Well, actually, I don't think accountability does lack. The reason I resigned was for accountability, because I was Minister of the Department at the time things happened. I wasn't involved in any of the detriments that happened. Even the tribunal actually never for 1 minute suggested I was involved in any of the detriments. The reason I actually resigned as Treasury Minister at the time was precisely because I believe in that old-fashioned thing of political accountability. I think many times in the past there hasn't been political accountability for things. I was determined there should be, and that's why I actually went.
You just said that you are a big fan of political accountability, good old-fashioned political accountability. Is that something that you'll be pushing for now that you're in Council of Ministers, if there is any fallout from other ministers?
Well, I think if political accountability is important, each situation has to be judged on its merits. And one thing I would say is, it's for the individual politician to decide. So, for instance, with the Dr. Ranson affair, I decided it was important. I was the Minister of the Department at the time, despite the fact I was not involved in any of the detriments. I felt it was appropriate that there was some political accountability. But, I don't judge anyone. It is for individuals to make that decision, not for other people to be, I would say, imposing their own judgments.
What do you think of what Mr Ashford has to say about that and the fact that he wasn't involved in it, but he took responsibility for it and he resigned Comyn and, of course, has recently come back in Cabinet Office? What do you think about that? Admirable, old-fashioned, political accountability? Could a few others do with following his lead? What do you think about it? You talked last week about the 100,000 population target, says Simon. People moan about the lack of nightlife. Well, that's happening everywhere. Look across Ireland. Half of the nightclubs have gone in Ireland, and the same around the UK. So quite how we expect to buck the trend on the Isle of Man 100,000 people, you've got to also make sure that some of those 100,000 people do want to go out at night. Well, you would think some would, wouldn't you, Simon? This is this target from the Island Plan that we need to get up to 100,000 in terms of population. And they've got to live somewhere. That's the important thing. If we're going to get another 15,000 people, where are they going to live? Is it going to be private rents, in which case, with the restricted supply, that means the price of rent is going to go up and up and up. Henry Bloom Noble had his name on the public baths, says Adele, in Victoria Street that he funded. You can actually still see, can't you, the back end of the public baths down Fort Street. After they were demolished, his name was put on the library. So he may not have directly funded the library or had his name on for very long. There's a reason his name was used, and that seems to have been completely forgotten, says Adele. We've talked about this. Do you think it's a bit mean of the Douglas Council to take away the Henry Bloom Noble Library? Is it better that it has somebody's name on it? We've talked about this in the past, and the fact that that would be a conversation. You know, if somebody came over for the TT or anything else or were visiting and saw the name and just said to you, who's this guy, Henry Bloom Noble? Starts a conversation, and then you talk about, he was a philanthropist, businessman, all-round good egg, really. But Douglas City Council just does what it says, doesn't it? Didn't Dorothy Panton leave her house to be used for hospice, says Liz D. And 473 says, here's the strap line for Ronaldsway Airport. If you have time to spare, go by air. Perhaps that's very cruel, isn't it? Time to spare, go by air. And Ben dropped me a line also and said, it's gone very quiet about this spy ship. We talked about this. In fact, it was broken on here. Call us to man. I think it was Mark who broke the story about this spy ship that was buzzing around the Isle of Man. Ben says, well, what's the story on this? Is anybody taking responsibility for it? And is it a threat to us? Bearing in mind that this Chinese ship across Europe dragged its anchor and pulled a cable up. Is this the new form of terrorism, dragging cables up? The Chief Minister says there's been no discussion with the UK Prime Minister following reports of this Russian spy ship being escorted away from the Isle of Man. Mr. Cannon was asked about it, the sighting of the Yantar in Keys last week. This is what Mr. Cannon had to say. What do you think about it? The Russian spy ship, and exactly how it's going to be solved. This is the Chief Minister.
There have been no discussions between myself and the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom as a result of this incident. The presence of the Russian vessel Yantar was monitored by UK defence assets as a routine procedure, and there have been no discussions between myself and the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom as a result of this incident. The presence of the Russian vessel Yantar was monitored by UK defence assets as a routine procedure, and this is our expectation in the event of a reoccurrence.
Did the vessel enter Manx territorial waters and have security around the interconnectors and other key infrastructures being improved?
Well, this is fundamentally a matter for UK defence assets. Mr. Speaker, there's been no correspondence or discussions with the UK in relation to defence following reports of a Russian vessel entering Manx waters.
I wonder if the Chief Minister can confirm, as we have valuable assets of our own on the seabeds and that, is he confident now that the Isle of Man government is fully protected, and is he aware that submarines do travel around and up the Irish Sea channels through the Beaufort Channel, which was denied by a number of ministers in the past?
This is all highly classified information, Mr. Speaker. I could tell you, Honourable Member, but then again, I probably have to.
Yeah.
Not entirely sure that was within the spirit of the answer, but
self-destruct.
Ms. Edge, further supplementary.
The point of my question, Mr. Speaker, was how is the Chief Minister reassuring the Manx public that our valuable assets, he is aware that they are being protected?
As I said, Mr. Speaker, the activities of the UK Defence Forces are not public knowledge.
No,
I am confident from the discussions that I have had in Westminster with various senior politicians and indeed with the senior members of the armed forces that assets in the Irish Sea and around the coast of the United Kingdom are a matter of concern for our armed forces, and proper defence assets are distributed accordingly in that respect.
There was the Chief Minister. I know he sounded like he had his head down the toilet. That was just the acoustics of the chamber in Keys. So, they're concerned about assets. They always say assets, don't they? I mean, we're talking about cables and pipes and things. And we have them around the Isle of Man. The trouble is, if some little Russian spy ship decides to zip in and out, we wouldn't know until something had happened, wouldn't they? We wouldn't know if they'd put a drone down and blown something up. And heavens above, we've got a gas pipe, a very important gas pipe, and a couple of cables, fibre optic cables, the big AC cable, the electric cable between here and Blackpool. So, I don't know. How do you feel about that? Do you think it's a bit light-hearted? I mean, this is quite serious, isn't it? Liz says, look, regarding this David Ashford thing, is it even relevant? Our government and Mr. Ashford especially was marvellous during COVID. We were looked after very well. Mr. Ashford personally helped so many with travel to UK hospitals during lockdown. Why is one woman's dispute, which has been £3 million worth, which is settled, why is this still cropping up, says Liz. We just need to move on.
There's been no discussion.
Fudge over. I'm in the doghouse now, boy. How was I to know that old chair I chopped up and chucked on the fire was a family heirloom? I thought I was saving us money, not torching her Chippendale. Anyway, she rushed off to Northern Fuels and Country Supplies at the old Derby Junk. Turns out they've everything, from kiln-dried hardwood and smokeless coal to domestic and commercial fuels, oils and lubricants. Now, she's toasty and warm indoors, and I'm with you. Next time, I'll go straight to Northern Fuels and Country Supplies. Check them out on Facebook.
Ocean Views is the perfect venue for your Christmas party. Whether small groups of family and friends or corporate bookings, Ocean Views can cater for parties of up to 120 people. With excellent choices on food, from a delicious 1, 2 or 3-course Christmas feast, available from the 28th of November, to your favourite non-festive dishes from the chef's seasonal menu, with free parking and wheelchair access. See the menus and book now for Christmas. Find Ocean Views on Facebook or at oceanviews.im.
Yes! This Christmas, give them something they'll really love, like the iPhone 16, Apple Watch or a Samsung tablet. Discover incredible value bundles exclusively at Shaw. Plus, get an M&S voucher worth up to £200 when you combine your mobile and broadband plans. Perfect for a Christmas to remember. Visit us in-store or online at shaw.com/Christmas. T's and C's apply. Come and strut your stuff on the dance floor with an evening of soul and Motown at the Mannin Hotel. On Saturday the 7th of December, the Mannin Soul and Motown Tribute Evening will feature classics from all your favourite artists all night long. With a 3-course dinner, entertainment, overnight stay and breakfast all included for just £210 per couple. You really do get more from the Mannin Hotel. Booking essential. Just call 605 155, visit manninhotel.im or find them on Facebook.
This Tuesday at 5:30 here on Manx Radio, join Kiri Kermode and myself, Simon Clark, for Countryside.
Last Thursday I went along to Isle of Man Meets for the second part of the Christmas Prime Stock show.
I chat to one of the most famous entertainers in the clubs and halls around the Isle of Man, Tilbury, and also I catch up with Andrew North, who was part of the adventure and wellness event held on International Men's Day.
As all in Countryside, Tuesday here on Manx Radio at 5:30. And don't forget, you can download and subscribe to the podcast for free at manxradio.com.
The Mannin Line with Andy Wint.
And David's with us now. Hi, David.
Hi, Andy. Just regarding the cables that are in the sea there.
Yeah.
I'm not an expert, but they're quite deep. And I know technology is very good. But what are we doing on the thing about all the satellite stations we got on? There's one up by Manx Radio, isn't it? On the BBC transmitter there. There's a full set of dishes there.
There used to be more, but I think it was Radio Luxembourg that were there as well. They took theirs away. They were like big Maltesers up there, weren't they?
Yeah. The other one is, don't forget that behind Braddon School there's still the old, dare I say it, Max Telecom one, or BT Telecom, whatever it was at the time. That's a huge dish that's hidden behind the school there. So we've got connections to the sky there, and a lot of people, I've noticed somebody saying too now that Skylink, and I'm involved in an organisation that's got Skylink there, how good it is. And it brings me to the point, really, what's happening with Manx Telecom? Is one of our ministers looking at it? Is it going to be brought in to look to see, to make sure that the locals don't get a poor deal?
We haven't heard a word, David. Nobody said anything.
Isn't that poor? I think it's poor when we give them how many million to roll out.
That's right. We gave them 15 million and more pounds to roll the fibre out, and the fact is, surely they know what the Isle of Man is. If you don't say anything, people will make it up.
They will, and I don't know. Maybe X will come along and take the whole thing, and maybe we'll get free service on the Isle of Man. Wouldn't that be wonderful?
Well, can you imagine that?
We don't ask the questions. If we don't ask the questions to say, what can we get from X, Y, or Z, we'll never know what's going to happen. And shouldn't the population be part of that decision when a lot of people are Max Telecom customers?
Well, you would think so, because but the only reason they're buying it because of all the people that have got Max Telecom accounts. We're the kind of the fodder. We're the people who are funding this.
Yeah, we just get hoovered up, don't we? And don't worry about if anybody's having to go at me. I'm a sure customer, so I hopefully will be protected. And I hope that the likes of all the internet providers, there's quite a lot of them on the island, quite a lot of local ones, business-wise too. How are we protecting them about maybe, say, an anti-competitive practice? Maybe it's sometimes where the government can actually get involved or have a share, or have an input. We did that. We own a steam packet. What else do we own? The water authority, the electricity.
Yeah.
And there's money. Well, security is the main thing, isn't it? What we offer in the Isle of Man is security.
Well, I mean, David, let's face it. Without the internet, an awful lot of people are, up the creek without a paddle because everybody relies on it. We certainly do here at the radio station.
Yeah, and where would we be without Alexa? It tells us everything.
All right. Okay.
And mine says good morning to me now, David. So, and it's a woman, but the wife's so. Okay.
Well, thanks for calling today. Ian dropped me Ian on 817 said, Andy, I don't think I've ever felt so discouraged living on the Isle of Man. Government in all its forms, both Tynwald and local government and commissions, seem to be out of control, more interested in their own agendas than looking after the population, local people, and doing what's right. There seem to be vanity schemes, all they're interested in, and appearing to look good with the net zero issue rather than dealing with the real problems facing the population. The airport is a real worry, and it seems it's in a worse state than it's ever been. I just wonder what the next disaster is going to be, says Ian. Thanks, Ian. And that's a very salient point in that everything that we observe is subjective. It's our opinion. And contextualizing things and finding out, were ever things worse in the past and what have you, it's not something you do on a regular basis. So you take your opinion today, and that often becomes your reality, your fact. So are things as bad as they've ever been? Well, plainly not. There are many things about the Isle of Man that are an awful lot better than they used to be. But really, is the airport better than it used to be? Doesn't matter what name's put on the library, it'll still be the library to me, says Faith. It's a very good point, Faith. Thanks for that. I noticed some Tesco foodstuffs have gone up 8 to 10% in the last week, says Gaz. We're paying the price for living on the Isle of Man, and the government expects 15,000 people to be happy with that choice and the cost of living here. I don't know what everybody's worried about the spy ship. They're probably just checking their assets over here, says Des. having just heard the piece from the Chief Minister and co, it doesn't sound like they're taking the war with Russia very seriously. More so unprofessional. UN responsible. He sounds more like Keir Starmer every time he speaks. Don't trust for our own safety. We have no faith in this government, says 775. So be careful. Be very careful. Text, email, call and WhatsApp. Bonzo's with us now. Hi, Bonzo.
Hello there. Oh, gosh. Where do I start now? Now, who has faith in this government? Some of the government? No, possibly not. So, that's a good place to start, or not. And then that leads me on to Mr. Ashford, the new Cabinet Office Minister, who, of course, believes himself to be entirely fit to be a Cabinet Office Minister or any other Office Minister, to be honest. Yes, well, he's got a very short memory, hasn't he? Because, of course, the ransom inquiry stemmed from various actions which he was a part of in government. And, those are responsibilities that, yes, that he had. But he took an awful long time to come to the conclusion that he ought to somehow act responsibly and show leadership and resign. Only when things were going spectacularly wrong at the ransom inquiry, and then the decision was then made in Ransom's favour, and then issuing her with over £3 million in compensation and costs. That doesn't really say that, I wasn't responsible for anything.
But, I mean, the report that came out didn't find him culpable in a way, did it?
Yes, I think the report verged on the kind of report that people wanted to see actually come out, rather than all of the facts. And if we're talking about all of the facts, for example, what about Ashford's infamous line-by-line rebuttal of oh dear, the name escapes me now. The lady who was doing the genetic testing.
Oh, Ransom.
No. Another one. The woman on the Isle of Man who had a genetics company.
Oh, yes, I know, yes.
Doing the testing.
Yes, and now you've got me at it as well. I can't remember.
Yeah. Yes, I can't. It'll come to me right at the end, when I need, when I've hung up and I'm not on the end of the line.
So you don't think in any way then that this needs to move on and Mr. Ashford can take up his cabinet career?
Oh, I'm sure Mr. Ashford would love it to move on. Oh, yes, let's like so many other things that have moved on in government over the past 20 years. MEA loan scandal. Yeah, we'll move on. Sefton, no, let's move along from that. There's lots of stuff that is moved along from. Lessons have been learned. We'll go on from that. No, I think these things should really be examined. And, well, also when we look at his predilection for shredding documents. I mean, he's now Cabinet Office Minister. And what does Cabinet Office have charge of?
A lot of things.
Ah, yes, but what in particular thing?
What are you thinking of?
I'll tell you. GTS, which is the repository of all digital records, etc.
Of course, yeah. Well, I mean, I don't think there's anything particularly nefarious in shredding documents. I think lots of people now are urged to get rid of stuff when they don't need it anymore.
That rather depends upon whether you're using them as evidence to support your statements, and then say, I don't have the supporting document to support the things that I am saying. Which was, as I recall, a thing which reinforced his objections towards the lady who was doing testing, who I can't remember the name of.
Rachel Glover.
Rachel Glover, yes, of course, yes. Yes, but the letter, as I recall, pertained to that. But he then couldn't actually show it because, oh no, sorry, I shredded it. Yeah, okay. So, right. So, given that this thing is so advantageous and praiseworthy of you in comparison to Rachel Glover, and you are saying that you can't produce it because you shredded it. Yeah, that's not a terribly credible position.
So, I mean, what would your solution to this? Does he have to serve a certain time in Purdah? Can't he ever go back to his... I mean, he has gone back to his career, but, I mean, do you think that if somebody... you've obviously got this kind of negative opinion of him, should he never be able to go back into Comyn as far as you're concerned?
As far as I and I think quite a few other people are concerned, he shouldn't really be in Tynwald.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks for that, Bonzo. Good to hear from you. Okay. It's all down to the voters of Douglas North. And he came top of the poll last time. And Tony's with us now. Hi, Tony B. Hi, Tony.
How you doing? Well, Bonzo did a nice character assassination there. Of all the people in Tynwald who actually can answer a question honestly, he's the only one I've ever heard say we're going to have to pay for net zero, which Bonzo said would be saving us money, because the wind farms will make us millions and we'll all get free electricity or whatever, low-cost electricity. That's what he said. That's Bonzo that said that, not David Ashford. David Ashford was one of the few people I've ever heard on the radio come back and say, this is all going to have to be paid for by someone, somehow. You haven't heard anybody else in Tynwald say that, have you?
So what do you feel? I mean, do you think Mr. Ashford is okay?
I think he's a really good person. Compared to half the other people in there, I'll give you an example. The person who's just said, we should get rid of the pay cards, whatever it is, and there's only a small proportion. So that doesn't matter then. I guess they're not voters, I don't know. But I think that's an appalling thing to say. And the solution is very, very, very simple. If you were to tax the higher earners a bit more, you could give back the 2% to the poor people that you nicked last time, rather than saying, I can't do that the next budget, which he's already put his precursors down for this. So I think, very clearly, half the members of Tynwald are just not telling the truth. And I think that's, even Bonzo would admit that half the time they don't know what they're talking about. And that the other problem we have, massively, is that they don't make any decisions. They're made by the departments. And they are just, the Tynwald people in charge, supposedly in charge, are just mouthpieces that trot out what they're told to say. So I'll come back to my original point that I phoned up about after the character assassination. I think David Ashford is fairly honest, compared to half the rest of Tynwald who are not honest, who avoid answering a question. So I'll come back. Very simple. We've been told by the Treasury Minister, is it? Dr. Allinson? Yeah, that's right, I think. So he said today, or yesterday, or whenever you broadcast it, that there was a very small proportion of people. Yeah. So he doesn't really care about the small proportion. And therefore we'll get rid of this because... we don't know why, but because of a small proportion. So that's not a very credible approach. No solution. Just go and buy or get yourself a bank account. So that means that somebody's got to go and find a birth certificate. How do you get one of those? You have to go and buy one. How do I get some money to buy it? I can't get any money because I'm poor. So once again, it's not about making it easy, it's about making it as complicated as possible for anybody. So my simple solution for this is go ahead and tell the post office, tell them, don't ask them, tell them they need to become a bank. Somebody can then go down the post office and arrange what they need to do at the post office to be able to get money paid to them by social services. That gives you two things that are good for us. One, we have a counter service because all the big banks will just keep closing branches, and you've got to go to Douglas if you're lucky, get in a queue and then hope that they're going to be able to tell you the answer to your question. Because otherwise, you can do online banking, which I don't want to do, because I don't trust the banks and I don't trust online. And I'm not alone. There's hundreds of people out there who are in the same boat who haven't got a computer, don't know how to get on the internet, don't have an internet connection.
They've never said, we asked the question, Tony, why they couldn't form an Isle of Man bank or a Manx bank, just like the government of Gibraltar did, when they got into trouble with people not having access or banks closing down. The government of Gibraltar started their own bank.
Well, they'll turn around and say, we've got the Bank of Isle of Man, which is actually NatWest. The Isle of Man Bank doesn't exist per se. It's just a name.
But I mean, I think the government's bank is the Isle of Man Bank. So if the government wanted to take all that business away from the Isle of Man Bank, they'd already have a basis to start their own bank.
Correct, but the Isle of Man Bank, per se, is owned by NatWest, who is owned by Bank of Scotland.
Yeah.
Right, so we don't have a national bank, full stop.
No, we don't. No, you're quite right.
Well, put one in place. The post office could quite easily become a bank. There are more branches of post office everywhere than there is bank branches, I guess. And there's post office branches in places where there's no banks. So I don't understand why there's this reluctance by the government to put this in place.
I'm very interested what you said about the fact that most people don't understand that the politicians aren't in charge, that it's senior civil servants and it's bureaucrats that are in charge. You see, we vote every 5 years in the belief that the politicians can do things.
But they can't, Andy. Right, I'll give you an example. Last year, tax was put up 2% for the lowest paid, right? And everybody else as well. But of course, if you're paid over 60 grand, then 2% is nothing compared to the poor person who's paid 35,000 a year. It's quite a sum. But when he was quizzed, that's Dr. Allenson was asked, well, why are you doing this? Well, we can't work out. We haven't got the figures. Now, this is the Treasury Minister. We haven't got the figures for the higher paid people to make the calculation to see how much revenue that would give us versus taking 2% off everybody. Have a guess who most of those people are that couldn't make those calculations. They don't want to make those calculations because it's them that will be affected most. Bonzo's an ex-civil servant. There is no charge to any civil servant if they get it wrong. Nothing. And he talks about David Ashford. He had to resign. Have you seen very many civil servants resign? I don't think so. They've been pushed occasionally, but not resigned. And when they resign or get pushed, they walk off with a massive pension. There's no punishment at all for them getting it wrong or giving the wrong advice or even demoting them, taking money off them, taking a bonus off them. No, nothing like that.
Okay, all right.
So I just think it needs put the Isle of Man back on the map with the post office as a bank. And that will solve a huge amount of problems instead of making it worse for everybody.
Okay, all right, Tony, thanks for calling.
Over to you. Take care.
Merry Christmas from everyone at Laxey School.
Yes! This Christmas, give them something they'll really love, like the iPhone 16, Apple Watch or a Samsung tablet. Discover incredible value bundles exclusively at Shaw. Plus, get an M&S voucher worth up to £200 when you combine your mobile and broadband plans. Perfect for a Christmas to remember. Visit us in-store or online at shaw.com/Christmas. T's and C's apply.
The nights are getting darker, and you know what that means. It's nearly Christmas. At Millie Chaps, you'll find all you need to add that sparkle this festive season. Decorate your home with quirky ornaments, fabulous rugs and lamps, and beautiful pictures. Millie Chaps also have a great range of unusual gifts, so don't delay. Call
Santa, is that you?
Shh. Ooh, there's some great finds here at Millie Chaps.
Yes, there are. Take time to browse Millie Chaps of Ramsey, a town full of special little shops.
For hearty homemade food this winter, come to the Colby Glen. With festive lunch and evening menus, the Colby Glen is the perfect place to celebrate with family and friends. Call 834853 to book. Christmas at the Colby Glen. Simply perfect.
The Loganair Black Friday sale is now on, and it's our biggest discount yet. Fly from the Isle of Man and save up to 20% off over 1 million seats across the Loganair network. Use promo code BF20 when booking. Book by 3rd December, travel from 9th January. T's and C's apply. Offer subject to availability. Exclusions apply. Visit loganair.co.uk. Loganair. Your journey. Our joy.
Your wish is granted.
Because it's Panto time at the Gaiety Theatre.
Oh, no, it isn't.
Oh, yes, it is. Stage Ed presents the classic Panto Dick Whittington, specially adapted for the Isle of Man this Christmas. With fun for all the family, as Dick Whittington and his Manx cat Tommy go to find out if the streets really are paved with gold in Laxey. Can Tommy help Dick become the Lord Mayor of Laxey, or will Longtail King stop him? And more importantly, will Sarah the cook ever sort out her soggy bottoms? Book now at villagaiety.com or call the box office on 600 555. Sponsored by Zedra Isle of Man and supported by Manx Radio.
The Reproductive Rights Bill seeks to bring up to date our somewhat archaic legislation. This private member's bill has been brought forward by Tanya August Phillips, MLC, and addresses matters relating to fertilisation, embryology and surrogacy. We've also had some important international tax orders in Tynwald and an income tax bill going through Keys. On agenda at 5:30 this evening on Manx Radio with me, Phil Gorn, we attempt to explain why these pieces of legislation matter. Encouragingly, a tax bill in Keys tends to mean more money to pay for essential services, and this time we won't be paying.
Big news, breaking news. The goats are loose on the Doon Road. The goats are free. If you drive up and down the Doon Road, you'll know what to do. Albert Gubay is on in just a few moments' time, talking about the Mount Murray. The Illiam Dhone people have been on to tell you that the Illiam Dhone commemoration organised for the 2nd of January by Mannin and the Mannin branch of the Celtic League will not be happening. There's been nobody available to organise the commemoration for Illiam Dhone at Hango Hill on the 2nd of January, so it's not going to be on. That's it. Back with another open line tomorrow. Thanks to Chris Quirk, and enjoy the rest of your Monday.
WINT 60 years serving you as the nation station. This is Manx Radio.
We're approaching the end of this year-long celebration of Manx Radio and its 60 years of broadcasts. So this month, through the magic of radio, I'm going to bring you 6 of the people who, for one reason or another, became well known on the airwaves. Well, let's start with the millionaire developer Albert Gubay. A robust businessman, he was behind the Mount Murray development, amongst other things. As work got underway on that development, Mr. Gubay outlined to David Collister the concept behind it, somewhat different to that we see today.
A lot of the people who are going to live here will play golf here. I understand some of these Americans are going to live here for 3-4 months in the year, and for the remainder of the time they will be letting off their homes through the hotel. The hotel will look after their homes, they'll be let off, there'll be an income coming in from them, and there will be people here all of the time.
So is it or isn't it a tourist attraction for the island?
It's a tourist attraction, but I believe based on package tours whereby golfers will come in to the island, spend possibly 4 days here, 4 days England, Scotland and Ireland, and be away from home perhaps for a couple of weeks.
Do you see as a result of this then future development of this area outside this particular development?
I don't, because as I've said before, I think the cost of getting to the island is too great, and I believe the Americans will be doing packages, charter flights, which will and they will bring in tourists to the island very, very cheaply.
I suppose people wouldn't realise the extent of the development. I mean, you say 200 acres, say it quickly, it doesn't mean a lot. When you actually get here and sit on the top of the hillside, it's covering a vast tract of land outside of Douglas. Do you feel at any time that it's loss of good agricultural land?
I don't think it's a loss of good agricultural land, because a lot of this land is not good agricultural land. There's very little soil on the surface and there's a lot of stone underneath. And the condition of some of these fields when we took them over was disgraceful. The drains, the ditches hadn't been cleaned for years, the land was bogged, it was waterlogged. We've had to spend an awful lot of time in getting the watercourses into a good state of repair before the work could start.
You've got, I think it's 9 holes on each side of the lane here. Was that a deliberate layout?
The golf expert who comes here, as I've said, informs me that this is the best thing to have, because when a competition goes on, I understand you can start one set on the first hole and another set at the 10th hole, and it quickens it up, it doubles the speed. It's the only golf course on the Isle of Man that has that facility, and I also understand it is the only golf course in the British Isles where the last 9 holes can all be seen from the clubhouse. I think that's amazing.
Part of island life for 60 years. This is your Manx Radio.